So, hey everyone, and welcome to the gaming room. This is a little something that I thought that maybe some people will find this interesting. I know, whenever people come over here, they usually kind of look around and they act like they're in Blockbuster or in a GameStop again, or there's some part of nostalgia that's being reached out to them whenever they wander around down here, and there's all sorts of cool little stuff to find. So, just after some thought, I figured maybe make this an annual thing. Each year, post a little gaming video or game room tour video, or maybe make a couple parts of this over time and just show what's up, show what's around. Because this is the amalgamation of about a little over 20 years worth of stuff. And, hey, there's definitely a lot of stuff in here that I have an attachment to, and it brings back some fond memories. And maybe it'll do the same for you, or maybe you can go, oh, hey, what's this? I've never seen this before. Hey, have you ever heard of this? Stuff like that. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start exploring a bit. So, as you can see, this wall is completely filled with the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 games that I've grown up with, and some of the Xbox 360 games that I bought in more recent years, as well as some books. And most of these PS2 type games are the same ones I had when I was very young, and there's a lot of great games in there. There's definitely some junk that I've grabbed at Goodwill just because I figured, hey, why not? Sometimes if you see a game for only $1, it's one of those situations of, you know, hey, maybe this is a hidden gem, maybe this is something special, or you know the price on this is probably going to get driven up for much longer, so why not go for it now? And that's what I've done with some of these. While growing up, I was definitely big on the PlayStation 2. There was a lot of games in the racing genre that I just completely loved, and that shaped a lot of my interests. And there was a number of games that I just have so many fond memories with, like the Battlefront games. Growing up with those and sitting down doing split screen with friends was absolutely incredible. Same with the Time Splitter series, for those of you who have ever played those. That's a very fond spot in the shooter genre, and so on. And there's definitely books. I certainly haven't read everything that you see here. In fact, some of these I've only just gone through with the audiobooks, but to tell you the truth, there's a lot of great gaming novels out there. Some of my favorite ones are definitely the Halo series here. If anything, I would very strongly recommend those to you if you are at all curious about the extended universe of the Halo franchise. And the Metro series, I would very, very strongly recommend those. Those are some of the finest books I've read. I remember the Tom Clancy book right there, Operation Barracuda, was the first gaming novel I ever read, and I remember it being a genuinely great read. And then here we have the Witcher series. My god, I cannot recommend the Witcher books enough. If you've had any interest in the TV series or the games, I very, very strongly recommend these books. And if you don't want to read them, then at least try listening to the audiobooks, because even those are on YouTube for free. Just sit down, get comfortable, maybe listen to it on the drive or while you're at work. Very strongly recommend. And there's more, of course, that I'd like to read. I want to get around to the XCOM books, and maybe some Tom Clancy, some of the Battlefield books, and so on, and Resident Evil. And there's the board games as well, of course. I've only played a couple of these so far, sadly. It seems like some of my friends just ain't as big on board games as they once were. That, or some of them are awfully complicated. Like, the XCOM and Fallout game there was rather difficult to play. That's something that you really need to sit down and dedicate more time to. And even down here in this little nook, I've got some more board games, such as Key to the Kingdom, that you might have saw from Board James if you watch James Rolfe content. What else? And there's even more books back there. It's a lot of Warhammer. But here I also have a little collection of strategy guides and there's much more of these scattered around, but these are all the hardbacks, or the ones that I think are the coolest, most interesting display pieces. And as you can see, there's more shoved down there. And here's many years of gaming magazines, from the PlayStation official magazine, PC Gamer at one point, even though I didn't really have a gaming PC when I bought these back in 2007. Then Game Pro from about 2002 to 2007. What a great series of magazines. And Game Informer, the one gaming magazine I'm still with, but just because, hey, it comes free with GameStop. And even down there was good old EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly. Absolutely loved their magazines. Them and Nintendo Power were my main ones that I loved more than anything. Then over here on my little rack, it's mostly DS games and PlayStation 1 games. My DS collection shrunk a lot over the years, especially about 6 or 7 years ago. I was stupid and sold off a bunch of games that I really shouldn't have ever sold off. But I've been trying to regrow it in recent times, and I do need to give the 3DS more love, but I just don't buy loose games. It bothers me. I don't want the loose cartridge rattling around somewhere, you know? Let's see. Then here is the PlayStation 1 collection, which is... there ain't much greatness in this collection, unfortunately. Just a lot of Goodwill stuff that I found, or whatever I could get that was still at a decent price, like the Ace Combat games. Armament 3D was one that I just could not resist getting. Contra, Croc. I remember that being a title that I was fascinated by when I was little. I had to get, of course, the Gundam Battle Assault games, and Driver means a lot to me. Legend of Legaia was a RPG recommended to me by a friend who loved that series. Down there's not much else that's really special, although... let's see. Huh. Here we have my Dreamcast games, a very sadly small collection. One that I definitely need to grow some more in. Oh, one of my Japanese games. Doesn't really belong there, but oh well. Dreamcast is a system I would absolutely love to buy more games for, but just with the prices and everything in recent years, it's awfully difficult to be able to do that. Now, lastly, is there anything else in here? Just a couple of soundtracks. Got the Halo soundtrack, Borderlands, Command and Conquer, Metroid, Samus Returns, Monster Hunter, Overwatch, Pokemon Enchante, and a couple random gaming DVDs over the years. Most of which from Electronic Gaming Monthly and Nintendo Power. And over here is my little shelf of figurines and some collector's books. My Metal Gear stuff. Of course, you have the Almighty Power Glove. One of my favorite pieces of my entire collection, the Doom Slayer helmet. This was one of the greatest purchases I think I've ever made, and I just love looking at it every time I'm down here. Then, yes, here is kind of like a wall of Nintendo for the most part. A lot of Switch titles, and that's an ever-growing collection, with a decent number of limited run games in here, as you can notice. And then the, of course, short-lived Wii U. I genuinely would love to buy more titles for this, but they are already getting so scarce to find, it seems like. GameStop has more or less just kind of thrown them out at this rate. And a lot of Wii games. I like getting ones that I've heard great things about or just seem really rare and obscure, or if I could just find something that I know is not just complete shovelware crap at Goodwill. So occasionally I'll find something good and interesting, and there's going to be a lot of content coming out of these, I think, one day in the future, but that's not quite yet. And here's the rest of some of those Japanese games. It's all Gundam titles, of course. And I'll hopefully be able to give these a try sometime on my backwards compatible PS3. And then these two stacks that you see here, all Nintendo powers. Nintendo Power is back from the N64 days, and up to about, I think, 2009 at the latest, maybe even a little after that. Then up here is a wall of more older stuff. Got what little NES games I have, which I wish I had more than this, but you know, it's kind of difficult to find the good games for a fair price anymore. I would love to get Contra back and many more titles. At this point, it's almost cheaper to get the reproductions, sadly. And unfortunately, this is also all the SNES titles I have, and a couple Famicom games. And a decent number of these are reproductions that my brother was nice enough to be able to get me. And some ROM hacks even, such as everyone's favorite SNES game, Sonic 4. Yeah, I need to try that one, see what it's all about. And here's what few N64 games I have. I really need to get on board with some of those labels that you can make for these. And I'd really need to grow this collection back up. I should have a lot more, but I think my brother wound up with some of them. Like, I'm still wondering where my Hot Wheels game is. And there's more N64 games I would love to absolutely buy, like, you know, Conker's Bad for a Day. And I need to get Super Smash Bros. Back in here, but that's something to worry about for another time. Then you have my humble little GameCube collection. It's mostly just focused on the quality titles that I've had, or always wanted. There definitely should be a lot more here, but over the years some were sold off or just lost, and this is what remains, and I'm trying to build it back up. This is one of my most proudest finds, actually, was getting Eternal Darkness at a Goodwill for only $2. And I think another proud game that I have that I own is, yes, Twilight Princess. Another one. And there's other good titles in here that I'd recommend, like Amazing Island was an interesting little adventure game. That was a racing game I sunk so many hours into. Battalion Wars was a series that deserved far more love than it got. And this was one of my favorite games of all time, Phantasy Star Online on the GameCube. There was so many good memories with that and so many hours poured into it. And some of my more recently acquired rarities are Skies of Arcadia Legends, because I couldn't afford the Dreamcast game, but I always wanted to play it because it was such a JRPG that fascinated me. Then down here it's just some of the amiibos of characters I like or I wanted their in-game items. Yeah, Operation and Risk Game, Fallout, and Call of Duty themed. Then behind this little board is just some Atari 2600 titles and loose Genesis games. So there's that. And over here is, well, more or less my little shrine of Fallout. Fallout is one of my favorite series of all time, and I just love the aesthetic of it, the items, the lore, the world. It's all so cool. And these Pip-Boys here are one of my favorite things in the collection. This was the Fallout 76 Pip-Boy kit that you can create, a model kit. And I managed to get this Fallout 4 Collector's Edition Pip-Boy, something that I was really bummed out I missed out on, through a convenient little luck of the draw deal, and got it for a fairly nice price. Then down here, funny enough, I have a little slot machine. It's picture of Doom, and yeah, don't mind that. Another proud part of this little Fallout setup is, besides the model kits of the Pip-Boys, which are amazing, the Power Fist, the plasma gun here. This is another proud part. And lastly, oh yeah, and there's an actual canvas bag for Fallout 76. I know, shocking, ain't it? And of course, the plasma rifle itself. Very cool. And I got them extremely cheap at GameStop. They were originally like $120 or $200, within that range, and I somehow got them clear down to $20 each for the Power Fist and everything. And the only one of the whole set that I didn't manage to get was the Super Sledge. And back here in general is just so pretty much all the loose boxes of stuff that I don't know quite what to do yet, and I don't want to throw it away. And oh dear. Well, it's not all loose boxes. This is a pride and joy of my collection, and for those of you who know what this is, a little game called Steel Battalion, that's getting a very, very special video on it in the future. There's the monstrous Fallout 76 box, the Doom Eternal box, and one of the most special games to me I ever had. And some limited run collector's editions of Jak X and Jak 3 and 2. Unfortunately, I didn't get the one for Jak 1, and that meant I couldn't get the special Jak 4 mock-up box and art book they did, which bummed me out, but oh well. And here we have a nice little statue of Geralt that I got very cheap. And my Yakuza shot glasses. The Neo Geo Mini, which that's a very cool little system, and I'd recommend you checking it out if you're interested. Fallout, a poster of one of my favorite games, Phantasy Star again. And then some figurines. You got God of War Collector's Edition, you got Anubis from Zone of the Enders, you have the Hunter from Bloodborne, Mr. I Am Dead Inside from Watch Dogs. Some of the boxes I think make cool display pieces, which for the most part is PlayStation games, but there is the Undertale Collector's Edition and limited runs Metal Slug 3, which one of my favorite shooters of all time. Side-scrolling shooters, I mean. Then you got the Sekiro, Cole McGrath, Jehudi, and the Battlefield 1 Collector's Edition, which that thing was amazing and extremely cheap. If it's still only $20 like it was back when I got it, absolutely recommend you check that out. And posters, or the Battlefield 1 stuff. A poster I'm very proud of from Etsy. And here's just some blushes and stuff things that I've got from friends over the years. Mario, a whole bunch of those I've gotten from family, and some of my favorite Pokemon. There's some nice sentiment to those, and they make me smile to be able to see. Remind me of some nice gifts and nice times, nice people. And now, a huge bulk of my collection, PlayStation 4. Those are all just like special edition boxes. I think almost all of those are emptied. And here's the actual games themselves. A lot of steelbooks, a lot of limited run games again, such as here, Counting Plus or Caldarius. It's mostly, again, actually I don't really think I guess I don't have a certain specific genre that has a lot of games, because it's been kind of well-rounded in recent years with a lot of shooters, a lot of racing, third-person games, action-adventure, horror games, some platformers occasionally. VR games make up a good chunk. The Gundam franchise is a favorite of mine. There's also a lot of JRPGs, but unfortunately I haven't really gotten the time to try those out. And as you can tell, there's PlayStation Vita games kind of stuffed in the center gaps. there's a lot of titles I'd recommend in here, and a lot of ones that are probably going to be considered rarities one day. Funny enough, like for example, Job Simulator, very hard to find for some reason. Both Job Simulator and Robinson, the Journey, for whatever reason, for PlayStation VR. So there's a bit of everything in here. And then here's, of course, the actual setup itself. So you've got the Nintendo Switch here at the end, PlayStation Vita, my Elgato, my Xbox One, which certainly could use a little more love in recent times, PlayStation 1 Mini, which incredibly cheap for that, my God of War Special Edition PS4, the PlayStation 3 Slim. I think I have like 3, maybe even 4 PlayStation 3s just scattered around the house at this point. Wii U, my little tower of SNES Mini, NES Classic, and Wii, modded Wii. Xbox 360, one of my many OG Xboxes, my GameCube, my good old Dreamcast, and some of my PS2s. A Slim, which I've always wondered what's up with this model because it's not styled like most Slims were. It's a little more blocky and strangely shaped, and it's like there's almost a sticker on top of this thing. Never been able to figure out what's going on with that. And of course, fat PS2, but honestly, there ain't much reason to play it. Now, I'll get back to PS3 and PS2 really soon, but let me show what's going on over here. So, here's a big tower of, gaming-related series, mangas, a lot of Legend of Zelda, which I actually very strongly recommend the Twilight Princess series. It's actually very surprisingly mature. A lot more than I ever expected it to be, and bloody. And many art books, The Art of Battlefield 4, Dead Space, Art of Fallout. I think art books are absolutely gorgeous. I'm fascinated as an artist to just sit down and read the sort of stuff that's in them. And it's a lot of interesting backstories in them, and concept designs. It's all very cool stuff. And here's a little more peculiar stuff. Like, I think this is a Bloodborne art book. This is, yeah, that's Destiny. This is a little book for Valkyria Chronicles. Another Battlefield 1 art book, and yeah, it's very tiny and only got for like $2. Some of the Halo graphic novels and comics and encyclopedia, and for other series. What else? There in the back are some of the Halo 2 Master Chief figurines that I grew up with. I absolutely loved playing with those when I was little. I would have them run around with my little wooden blocks and Lincoln logs and army men, stuff like that. And then the rest, we got the Adam Jensen Collector's Edition statue, the Doomslayer figurine, and V from Cyberpunk. And now this is a bit of a tight fit. Unfortunately, I don't have a good place to put all these. My little fine, exquisite tower of Xbox games. A lot of good multi-platforms. The Xbox, the OG is especially amazing to me. I loved many of the titles that came out on it. And unfortunately, that's all my Xbox One games, but a big chunk of that is because I buy multi-platform on PlayStation, and for the most part, only PlayStation. Fallout's an exception because of how modding works with the Xbox systems versus PlayStation's pathetic support for mods, unfortunately. And down below, there's more titles. I think the ones I had the most fondness and memories with is 13, Red Dead Revolver, Halo 1 and 2, like most people, Fusion Frenzy, and probably Time Splitters, to be honest. That's another big place where I played it, as well as Conflict Desert Storm. A lot of memories with those games, and ones that I do need to go ahead and play, such as Ninja Gaiden and I was just looking at it. Mech Assault. Is a huge fan of mech games. Now let's kind of skim through these. There is a lot of PlayStation 3 games. I think this is the system I own the most stuff for. And thank God for this little wall, because I certainly wouldn't have enough space anywhere else. Man. It's almost overwhelming. I'm not even sure what to point out. Suppose, for example, this is what convinced me to buy a PS3, the MotorStorm games. And still, some of the best racers ever made, I believe. That very firmly. MotorStorm 1 is great. Pacific Rift, I think that's the best PS3 racing game. The best racing game of that entire generation, if I may. And Apocalypse is alright. It felt more like a clone a split second to me. And there's so many other games I could strongly recommend. The Jack Collection's amazing. Ghostbusters is even a very cool game. What else? Dead Space, oh man. I grew up loving those. 1 and 2 was still such powerful entries in the whole genre. Okay. Let's see if we can get this to focus. And there at the back are my Japanese games. Mostly the Gundam series, but there are a few outside of it, such as Okami HD, and I think a game called EX Troopers, which was like a spin-off of Lost Planet, which Lost Planet is also another amazing series. And to maybe shed a bit more spotlight on PS2, Burnout 3 and Revenge were my most played games, probably by far. And besides those games, what else? I believe I've mentioned most of them. Those Need for Speed games, especially Most Wanted and Underground and Carbon. So many hours on those. So many fond memories. Tony Hawk games. Oh man. A lot of fondness there, especially with Underground 2. I think that's probably my favorite in the entire series. And there at the end are some of my PSP games. The one I would recommend the most out of that little setup there is definitely Peace Walker. Peace Walker was such an amazing title. And I haven't played some of the others, and I'm missing some of them. Because Siphon Filter was one of the PSP games I played a lot, and that one was absolutely incredible. And SOCOM Bravo Team 3 was another amazing title I vividly remember. What else? Some more card games like Card Against Humanity. And there's many titles here. Xbox 360 was a very good, strong system with a lot of fantastic exclusives. And that's, for the most part, what's up here. Not all, but mostly. I'm fascinated by some of these more rare and strange titles that you probably haven't heard of with 360, like Samurai Showdown Sin and Spectral Force and what else? 99 Nights or Ninja Blade, Hot Tuner Nights, or oh my god, I butchered that completely. Import Tuner Challenge, Infinite Undiscovery. Actually, no, it's not Infinite Undiscovery. It was Lost Odyssey and Last Remnant that fascinated me. Far Cry Predator was a game I adored and been meaning to go back to. Darkest Days is another fascinating one. I'm a huge fan of the Katamari games, and I still have not touched that one. I love the one on PS3, and the first on PS2 was such special experiences. Then there's more bizarre games like I don't know anything about Autobahn Police, and there's one more just like it. Crash Time over here. So yeah, there's very many games on the 360 that I need to try still and toy around with. Though, before I move elsewhere, I strongly recommend Alan Wake if you haven't heard about that or played it. And up there, some more Cyberpunk merch, such as the Johnny Silverhand figurine. Amazing figurine, by the way. and a 3D print of a gun from Cyberpunk, actually. One moment. It's very cool. It's a Militech auto pistol. The magazine actually does come out. Very neat 3D printout, and it was pretty cheap. Then there's more stuff such as Marvel vs. Capcom's little collector's edition figures that I got almost for free because GameStop was more or less giving it out. A proud piece is my friend's Dark Souls 3 collector's edition that he gave me. Very proud of that. I like it a lot. And the Order 1886, if that's the right title. And I so badly wish I got more for Titanfall. Missing that collector's edition to me is the biggest regret in gaming. I genuinely wish I got the chance to play that. Oh yeah, another interesting little game I'm curious if anyone's ever heard of. Operation Darkness, a World War II strategy game where you're playing as the British SAS as werewolves versus vampire Nazis. Yeah, it's a wild sounding game, ain't it? I'm curious if anyone's ever heard of that because I've only played a little bit. What else can I show? Well, I suppose my PC setup might actually be a smart choice. Well, as you can see, my desk is a little busy and cluttered. I got some gifts from my relatives on there. I got my Gunpla and more recent figurines that they've made. This here is probably one of my favorite models that I've made of Barbatos. Well, as another little kit. And Nintendo Labo down there. And one of the only Funko Pops that I got, because that is some of the only merch, at least at the time, for Castlevania. Amazing Netflix series if you haven't seen that. And then there's another proud piece I worked on, my Gundam Alex that I battle damaged, or at least I tried to. And actually, funny enough, this is one of my first kits too. Very early on I got this and made this. The new Gundam version Ka. God, I wish I had more skill. I'm a little ashamed of it now, and it definitely has been outshined by some other kits. There's more figurines, more gifts, and of course the PC itself, the new webcam I got, an amazing HyperX Quadcast mic. Very highly recommend this thing, it's very neat. Razer mouse and keyboard. I know, RGB, well, honestly I love RGB. I like the aesthetic, I like the glow. It's very calming and pretty to look at. Makes for a nice atmosphere. Then my PC itself. I hope some PC people out there aren't cringing too much at this. It's my first attempt at a build and I'm pretty proud of it. She runs really good. I might wind up needing to put a part list of what's in there. Boy, I didn't realize it needs dusting already too. Put it together about late March, I believe. Then there's some old PC games, including also got a Atari, or not Atari, a little Pong table here. Hook up to the TV, plug and play. Wonder how old it is. I believe James Rolfe actually has used this in one of his videos about Pong consoles. But yeah, some big box PC games. And a few more recent things. As you can see. Okay. So there's all that. It's quite a bit of everything, and there's another model kit down there I'm meaning to build soon. I'm curious if anyone would be interested in seeing Gunpla built on this channel. So I got a few kits to work on, that Mark II Master Grade and this 1/100th scale GP04, for those of you who are into the series. But yeah, I believe that covers a good chunk of this room. Showing all my systems and extra stuff. This whole cabinet, I suppose I should mention, is just filled with a lot of more retro stuff that I don't have the room for, and only drag out on like more special occasions. That box is just full of controllers down there for each system, and then boxes of cords and wires. Some N64 and PlayStation 1, other systems. Man, I really need to get an expansion pack in that N64 because I'd like to play Donkey Kong Country, or not Country, Donkey Kong 64 again. But yeah, there's a bit of everything down there, and here we got, I think that's a power pad for the NES, Super Scope, zappers, and arcade pads, and both Genesis and NES controllers, really. Then down here in this little crate, mobile, or not mobile game, handheld chargers and whatnot, and miscellaneous cords, Game Boy games, original Game Boy games, and Game Boy Color is in here. Some of these I've actually acquired in recent years, and I'm proud to own them. Then, here's a lot of the Game Boy Advance games I grew up with, though some are new, and some I have bought in more recent times, and dumb, random DS games that I don't know what to do with. But yeah, there's a lot of great titles in there. Metroid Fusion was probably my most played one, and Advance Wars. Definitely those two the most. Although I think another favorite of mine was one of my favorite JRPGs of all time, The Golden Sun. Then got the Game Boy printer in there. I even have some rolls of paper to it still, funny enough. So there's that. And lastly, go in there, my little handheld gaming systems. Most of this is what I grew up with, or I got through my brother. Some of the hand-me-downs and whatnot. There's some neat stuff in here. Actually, not sure where that... Oh, yeah. Okay. I used to have another special model of SP. Unfortunately, I have no idea where that went. And my old Game Boy SP, that was the Shrek edition. Yeah. That's probably a trip for some of you. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a mess, but more random systems and my old pencil box from kindergarten and first grade. Is there anything else? Those are all loose boxes that I got from GameStop employees who were like, we're gonna throw them out. It's more or less just backup cases for if I buy a used game and it's jacked up, or if I do buy a loose game, then hey, I'll have a box to put it in. Stuff like that. It's a shame that GameStop employees will have to throw out the handheld game boxes. Most of them won't keep it. Other than that, there's not much else to show. Some loose Xbox 360 game faceplates I basically got for free. Some of my favorite movies and anime. Don't really watch a whole lot of anime, to be honest, especially not these days. Though this might be my exception, if you can tell. The Gundam franchise. And lastly, loose Genesis games. Other than that, that about concludes my gaming collection, and well, there is a art piece from the Renaissance Festival of Geralt I got, and the random Call of Duty Black Ops care package that I found at Goodwill. So yes, that essentially wraps up the collection here. So, that's our little tour, and hey, I hope it was enjoyable. I hope maybe you've seen some interesting things. I probably could have dug around a bit more, but I figured that might do. And maybe next year we'll see how much it's grown, or if it's moved to a whole new place, or what's going on. So, with that, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you take care. I hope everyone's staying safe out there. And, yeah. We'll see you next time, I hope. Take care. And bye-bye.